Bem-vindos à Sociedade das Nações, um programa semanal sobre a atualidade internacional aqui na SIC Notícias e hoje sem o Martim Cabral. No fim de 2012, Edward Snowden tornou-se uma notícia. Era um jovem analista de sistemas contratado pela CIA e pela NSA, duas das principais agências de informações, ou se quisermos, serviços secretos dos Estados Unidos. Com motivações discutíveis e discutidas, Snowden iniciou uma rocambolesca fuga por Hong Kong e pela Rússia e revelou cerca de 200 mil documentos sobre programas de interseção de comunicações e vigilância mantidos pelos serviços americanos, com nomes tão exóticos como PRISM, X-Keyscore, Tempora, Muscular ou Shell Trumpet. Desde o escândalo Wikileaks que não se via tanta agitação internacional nesta área. Criaram-se depois várias bolas de neve. Governos, aliados de Washington, disseram ter dados sobre escutas clandestinas por parte dos EUA, chefes dos serviços secretos ocidentais afluíram a Washington para pedir explicações e a União Europeia exigiu novas regras de transparência. Em Washington, o secretário de Estado John Kerry e o presidente Obama prometeram também mais controle sobre organizações como a NSA. E o Congresso americano começou a ouvir os diretores das várias agências em causa e temos hoje connosco um dos homens-chave envolvidos nestes inquéritos, é o congressista Devin Nunes, membro do Comitê de Serviços Secretos da Câmara dos Representantes, a House Select Committee on Intelligence. Welcome, Congressman, once again.
Thank you.
Tell me one thing, do you think that all those allegations of wiretappings and monitoring affected, and if they affected, was it serious, the relations between the United States and its main partners, especially in the European Union?
Well, there's no question that that Snowden is, I think, the largest leak in United States history, and he's done tremendous damage to the United States intelligence services. However, this is something that that we will get past with Europe. We're in the middle of a major trade agreement. For the first time, it appears like we can have a fully implemented free trade agreement, which is long overdue. And I think people just have to be grown-ups about this. It's no secret that that we spy and everybody else spies. And that's the name of the game. It has been since the founding of our country and long before that.
So you don't believe in the famous phrase that gentlemen don't read each other's letters?
Well, I think it's even worse than that right now, because you have to remember that technology is changing so rapidly.
Sure.
And anything that anyone puts on to email today, in my opinion, you might as well see that as an open document that at some point anyone could see that. Because there's so many lines, so many transmissions, there's so many attempts by many countries around the globe to access these not only telephone lines but also the internet connections.
But you, as a member of the legislative power in the United States, the man that watches over legality and controls government, do you think that everything is justified in the name of national security or not?
Yeah, look, we have there is a growing terrorism threat around the globe. We have been at this now for over a decade. We've lost many of our American lives, not just in the terrorist attacks themselves, but also through our military and our intelligence services trying to track Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda affiliates all over the globe. We take it very seriously. And if you look at the role that I play in the Congress, along with my colleagues, we have the most robust check and balance system in the globe as it relates to the intelligence services, because we have not only when you look at NSA, which is what you're referring to, the National Security Agency, there is a FISA court, so we have the judicial branch involved, and we have the legislative branch involved in overseeing this. So it makes for good television, lots of spy stories, lots of it sounds good to the media, but for the most part, it's a lot of exaggeration and not focusing on the real problem.
But as you know, the European Union, through several legislators and even through heads of state, President Hollande, Chancellor Merkel, expressed some concerns about not the essence of the problem, but the limits and the red lines that should be instituted in these matters. Do you believe there should be some changes?
I think everyone has their own politics in their own country that they have to deal with. But I am quite sure that through our executive branch, through President Obama, he has relayed directly to those countries exactly that you mentioned, both Germany and France, exactly what we were doing and why we were doing it. And for us to focus on this attack on our intelligence services that do not spy for economic reasons.
They do not spy for economic reasons.
Do not spy for economic reasons. And to ignore what China and Russia are doing is absurd. The Chi-Coms are quickly working all over the globe to put in systems and inlets into the communication systems around all over the globe. The Mandiant report came out just about a year ago. We've done a lot of investigations on our committee, and I think if folks were smart, they should ask the NSA to come to their country and to investigate what the Chinese, Russians, and others are doing to their networks.
Yeah, but as people say, two wrongs don't make one right. I mean, the fact that the Chinese and the Russians are spying doesn't mean that if the NSA crosses some line, should not be checked.
But the NSA is the signals intelligence branch of our military.
Yeah.
The Chi-Coms are what they are. They're dictators. They're moving money out of China, making investments, even here in Portugal. Yeah. They're making investments into telecom, and they move that intelligence to make business decisions so that the Chi-Com leaders can make investments. The same goes for Putin in Russia. These are not places where freedom is on the march. Freedom is being suppressed, and to me, as a Portuguese American, it's a little insulting that here we've lost thousands of lives. We've lost NSA agents have lost their lives all over the globe, trying to protect the entire West. And so, I'm going to defend. These are warriors, and we have full oversight. You have the judicial branch involved, along with the legislative branch. We don't spy for economic reasons, period, while we know the others do.
If by any chance you would discover in your Select Committee on Intelligence that there will be an agency in the United States spying for economic reasons on Britain or in France or in Germany, what do you think should be the measures to be taken?
It's not happening. It's not happening.
If it would happen,
if
it would not be
if it
right.
would happen, it would be a major crisis in the United States. If that was to happen.
And you don't think that the public opinion in the United States is changing their views on national security, saying that there maybe should be more checks and balances? You referred to some checks and balances, but you think that the tendency is for the public to say, let's check it more? Well,
you've been around politics a long time and in the news business.
Yeah, too long.
And oftentimes, what the first report is often wrong. So I think when the first reports were that, oh my gosh, the NSA is reading everyone's
Big Brother,
everyone's email.
Right.
Well, then most people didn't know what, most Americans, most people around the globe did not even know what NSA stood for, and that it was part of our military. People thought it was, some computer airline company or something. They have no clue.
Well, the people that should know, they know what it is.
But the public, the perception that was put out there by the media, at first there was I think people stood back. But now as the facts have begin to come out, when you take the fact that Snowden, he didn't go to a place where freedom loving. He fled to China.
That's true.
And then he fled to Russia. Yeah. And the Russians are harboring him. So we've asked for him back. This is the largest leak in American history. And when we have leaks like this, it doesn't just hurt Americans. It doesn't just endanger the lives of our soldiers and our troops. It endangers the lives of Europeans also.
But how do you see Snowden the man? I mean, do you see him as a whistleblower with good intentions? Is it a guy that has been planted in your services for long? I mean, who is he? I mean, have you been discussing that in your committee?
There's a full-blown investigation going on. And this is someone who not only did he break one law, he broke multiple laws. He was a systems administrator, so he was someone that that's supposed to make sure the computers are running.
Yeah.
And instead, he was going in and taking information, which is which is illegal in the United States and
that,
illegal here in Europe.
Yeah, but what does it tell you about the rules of surveillance and the internal checks and security of your own agencies?
There is yes, and that's actually
it's bizarre. I mean, that someone that is so low key and low echelon, not to play with the echelon word, but so low echelon.
Yeah.
How could he have access to so many top secret data?
He was in exactly the right place.
So was he planted, or?
We don't know that yet. I mean, look, my suspicions are he had to have been, just because of his ability to get to the right place and take what he took. But eventually, the truth will all come out on what he took. But as we move forward, there is a responsibility now that the Intelligence Committee in the Congress has to work with our executive branch and our foreign partners to make sure that we have no leaks like this again in the future.
Although probably you cannot discuss certain things here, but do you think there is any connection between this case and the case some years ago of the Russian rings that were discovered in the United States, so-called Anna Chapman rings? Basically, these were people that were Russian agents that were embedded in American social life for long, and they behaved like Americans, they walked like Americans, they looked like Americans, but they were not. Do you see any connection? Could there be any connection between Snowden and those rings?
Well,
he was offered marriage by Hannah Chapman, but that's a small story.
Well, look, I think that he's it's no secret that every country has intelligence services. And some do it to protect their own country and to protect their allies, and other folks do it for the wrong reasons. And this is, I think Russia is a great country. They've come a long way in a short time, and we want them to. We want us West, United States, and I think in Europeans, we want them to become part of the West, get out of the Cold War mentality. But this working with the Chinese and the Chi-Coms is just something that I don't understand. I don't know why the Russians don't work more closely with us, because ultimately, the Chinese government's going to have a tough time staying in power, and because their people are being oppressed.
I just returned from China 1 week ago. And one Chinese officer told me, we would never in our life take a guy like Snowden because we don't want problems with the United States at that level. Do you think they are being sincere if they say that? That
sounds accurate. Yeah, they probably knew that would cause some serious damage, where the Russians weren't worried about it.
You just mentioned the executive power of President Obama and Congress as legislation branch. Do you think that this issue of national security should be more in the hands of the executive, or it should be more in other hands, or the present constitutional arrangement is perfect, you should not touch it?
Well, the one thing is it's an ongoing fight always in the United States between the powers of the legislative branch and the executive branch. And so the way the Founding Fathers designed our country was that we have the power to do the budgets, the power to tax and to appropriate money. And so this is something that's been going on for over 200 years in our country, and it will continue. Oftentimes we've had this, it seems like second-term presidents.
Right.
They tend to try to act only as the executive and ignore the legislative branch. And I think much to their peril. If you look at President Obama's approval rating, it's dropping because of his inability to work with the Congress. If you look at President Bush, George W. Bush, the same thing happened to him after his reelection. The same thing happened to Bill Clinton. So I think it's probably a lesson for whoever our next president is, that in their second term they should work closer with the legislative branch, and I think we would all benefit.
How do you see the role of President Obama? You as a Republican, I know you're not a partisan man, but you are a party man. Okay, let's draw a line. I mean, how do you see the role of President Obama in dealing with national security in the United States, both in this case and in operations around the world in dangerous places like Somalia, etc.?
Well, right now there's a big debate about the situation in Iran. President Obama, I think, believes that the Iranians will give up their nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
The Congress.
They still don't have the weapons, but. By the way,
well, maybe not, but they're trying to get them. They're trying to gain access to them and build them. The Congress, I think, does not support that position. And that's the good thing about the United States. We will have this debate out in the public. And so as President Obama tries to implement this Iranian policy, as he deals with the future of Afghanistan, these are all decisions that ultimately the president will have responsibility for these, and history will judge him accordingly.
But as you know, commentators and journalists, they say, okay, he's a Nobel Peace Prize, he's the president that promised to get the world rid of nuclear weapons, and now he has to deliver. I mean, do you see him, let's say, confronted between two worlds, the world of the Nobel Peace Prize and the world of an American president? I mean, is he fighting two wars inside of him?
Well, there's what we would like the world to look like,
yeah,
and then there's reality. You know, we don't want, all of us want, between the Portugal and Americans and all of the West, we wish that radical Islam was not there. But the fact is that it exists, and it's growing, and Al-Qaeda is still out there. It's changed the way that they operate, but it's going to remain a problem for decades. And so as much as I think the president wants to wish away radical extreme Islamic extremism, as long as he wants to wish away that people won't try to get their hands on nuclear weapons, at this point it's nothing but a wish. And it takes the dedication of our intelligence services, working with our military, working with other Western countries' intelligence services and their militaries to try to stop the growth and expansion of radical Islam and weapons of mass destruction.
You're a young politician, I mean, but you lived, okay, let's go back to the end of the Clinton era. We passed these 10 years or 12 years dealing with something that we still really don't know exactly what it is. Al-Qaeda is a galaxy. We know certain things, we think we know, and then we have to review our opinions on lots of things. But you think we are still, is this still the big problem? I mean, is a thing like Al-Qaeda, I mean, or we should move to another era? I mean, like.
Well, we would all like to, but it's just not reality. We have to continue to deal with it. Look, it's hard for us in the West to fathom how one is willing to take their own life and to kill others.
Right.
It's hard to understand, but it's happening and it continues to happen. We're very concerned about not only the situation in the Middle East, but also all over North Africa, West Africa, now spreading to Sub-Sahara Africa. This is not I wish it would go away. President Obama wishes it would go away. It will not go away without a lot of hard work and a lot of people being in dangerous places to try to rid the world of this extremism.
It's curious that President Obama, some months ago, in a speech he delivered, he promised to review or get rid of certain measures that were designed during the Bush era in an emergency setting to deal with terrorism, etc. I mean, the question of capture, of remote operations. He promised that he would review these kind of things. But still, he is maintaining those laws, and for instance, the operation in Somalia was based on that law that he promised to change. I mean, what does that tell you of President Obama's fight for a new legality in this matter? Well,
it tells me that what sounded good during the campaign, and once you take the power of the executive branch, the most powerful position in the world, being the President of the United States, that he has a duty and responsibility to protect the United States citizens, and he discovered that the rules and the laws that President Bush put into effect weren't something that President George W. Bush wanted to do. It's what he had to do to protect the American people, and that's why President Obama hasn't been able to change those, and nor has he even really attempted to.
Final matter. I mean, you were a Portuguese American congressman. How would you, in 2 minutes, describe the present state of affairs between the United States and Portugal in this area of security?
Well, there's obviously, my family and most of the Portuguese in the United States are from the Azores. Right. Most of them are, especially in California and in New England. So the Azores is a very important strategic relationship, not only for for the reasons that there are diasporas in the United States, but also because the Azores is a strategic military location for us. It was in World War II. It was during the Cold War. It was during times during the Israeli-Egypt war.
Yom Kippur War.
Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
And all through the 1980s when the Soviet subs were in the Atlantic, and of course using it as an important stop-off as we move troops to and from the Middle East. And it will remain that way. The issue right now that's the challenge for our government is we are making budget cuts. The Pentagon has been, I think, unwilling to really look at our European footprint over the years. And it's a large footprint, as many people know. We have over 100,000 troops here on 30 bases. And we have to long-term look at the future of that footprint of our military in Europe. Myself and the United States House of Representatives has made it very clear that we see the Lajes base in the Azores as the most important part of the Portuguese-U.S. relationship. However, the decisions to have to close other bases in Europe are tough for the Pentagon, and I understand that. But as we look forward to this problem that we have in North Africa, West Africa, and Sub-Saharan Africa, it's just not a location that we need to be looking at how we're going to posture ourselves to fight that growing threat.
Let's see if you can convince your partners in Washington of this key issue. Well, Congressman, it was a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Hope to see you again.
It's nice to see you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.